This has been a really huge news week. And of course, the big story has been what's happening in Afghanistan. And let's just say the disastrous exit. Most sadly, we have left Americans behind, and we knew we were doing it. And we kept the deadline because apparently for some reason known only to God and Joe Biden, keeping that arbitrary deadline was more important than the American citizens that we had stuck in Afghanistan. Now, the day after, President Biden came out to the White House and he gave one of what I thought was one of the most bizarre speeches I've seen a president make, in light of the fact that even his friends in the media, CNN and ABC and NBC, were roundly criticizing the manner in which the exit happened, they calling it chaotic and disorganized. He came out and almost broke his arm, patting himself on the back for what he deemed as one of the most wonderful and successful operations in military history. And apparently he was the only one who saw it that way. But on one hand, he talked about how the intelligence community had failed to foresee that the Taliban would so rapidly, in a matter of hours, take the whole country. And then he turned around and praised the intelligence community for such a great job. And I'm thinking, Joe, it can't be both. If they had no idea this was going to fall out this way, then I don't think you ought to be complimenting for how brilliant they were and what a great operation this was. Now, we got 100,000 people out. You know what's interesting? A lot of those 100,000 were not the people who were either American citizens, nor were they the translators and Afghan fighters who worked with us and saved American lives. And by the way, can I just tell you that one of the most outrageous things is that when they were saying, well, we weren't sure they were translators, but they didn't speak English. Think about that a minute. If they were translators, they would speak English, right? So a person that says, I'm a translator, do you speak English? No, they're not a translator. I don't even have to be there and fill out the paperwork to tell them that. I want you to see a little clip. This is Joe Biden bragging about how great the evacuation was and talking about the fact that, great as it was, we still left 10% of Americans stranded.
Last night in Kabul, the United States ended 20 years of war in Afghanistan, the longest war in American history. We completed one of the biggest airlifts in history, with more than 120,000 people evacuated to safety. That number is more than double what most experts thought were possible. No nation has ever done anything like it in all of history.
I'm just stunned by the fact that he truly believes that the number of people we got out is more important than who those people were. Interestingly, there were many Americans who were waving their blue passports at the gate, some of whom got in and then were told by the State Department and the military that despite that they had gotten themselves to the airport at great danger, gotten themselves through that chaotic nonsense and crowd, they still were not allowed to get on an airplane. But somehow we got 100,000 Afghanis out, some of whom could be, for all we know, terrorists. We have no idea who they are. They had no paperwork. Their biometrics did not fit anything, which means we have no record of them ever having helped us. But they got out and citizens didn't. It wasn't just Joe Biden who was defending all this. His lackeys like Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, and John Kirby, former admiral of the Navy, who is now the spokesperson at the Pentagon, they both had their own spin on how great this was. Let's watch both of them.
President Biden at one point promised that U.S. troops would stay until all American citizens who wanted to get out got out. And there are still American citizens there and U.S. troops are gone. So if you assess, if the military assesses that these 100 plus Americans are under imminent threat, what's the military prepared to do about it?
Our job is to provide options to the commander-in-chief, but it's not to make policy. And I think I just leave it right at there, John.
All right, that was John Kirby from the Pentagon. Here's Jen Psaki from the White House also talking about the hostage situation, which is really what we have there.
Administration preparing for worst case scenario in some circumstances, hostage situations?
Look, our focus right now is on making clear to the Taliban and to others in Afghanistan that we are going to get these American citizens out, that we are going to hold them to that account, and that's our focase. Thanks, everyone.
Iran-related question.
I'll be back tomorrow.
You told me that yesterday. Can I ask you, now that I have your attention, can I ask you one question?
Yeah, I think she put that mask on not for COVID, but to cover up her mouth, which was wide open, saying, oh my gosh, I got to get out of here. I can't handle these questions. I mean, I've never seen someone exit so quickly and abruptly, but how do you answer that? The truth is, we are setting ourselves up for a hostage situation with Americans, and the worst is, her answer, as lame as it could be, oh, we trust the Taliban to let them out. That ought to work great. I can't think of anything more brilliant as a strategy to get Americans out than to just ask the good old boys of the Taliban, why don't you let those people out? Folks, if the Taliban would have let them out, don't you think they would have done it when we still had military personnel and American planes lined up on the runway to take them out? And if we left without those Americans when we had some firepower, what on earth gives us the idea that now they're going to escort them over to the airport and let them go? Now, if you're seeing this, I know you've enjoyed that video. I mean, how could you not, after all? So you know what you should do? Leave a like, click on the subscribe button below, and hit the notification bell next to it so you'll always know when I have another video up for you to enjoy.